Almost there. Come on. Made it. Morning, class. My name's TJ, and my cultural presentation is primarily going to focus on the alphabet of the Bakossi language. So without wasting any time, and because being the first volunteer means to get extra credit, let's dive into the many examples of this wonderful language that I'd wish I'd spent more time analyzing thoroughly instead of rushing through it the night before without getting any sleep. Forget I said that. Of course, the first letter in the alphabet is A, so the example I'm going to use for that is a pineapple. Which is actually translated to achang. Achang. The little N here with the curve that makes it look like it's part J means you pronounce it with an NG sound, similar to words like doing or being or saying. The next letter is B, and the first of two examples here is bench, which is pronounced benze. Then example 2 provides the brain, which is pronounced bung. The slanted O there is pronounced like two O's, so it carries twice the significance. Up next is the CH or ch section, with what I initially didn't know was a picture of someone's chin. I thought it was just a human face, but it's a chin. The Bakossi word for that is ched. Not Chad, ched. The other example is Rango the chameleon. Except it's not Rango, it's just a chameleon. What am I doing? Which is pronounced chokod, with the symbolized O there, giving a very specific O sound as opposed to the standard a typical O is associated with, like God or dog. Then we move on to D, the first example of which is, weird enough, the number 10, which is pronounced diom. Diom. Again, the symbolized O really helps. And then there's the human's naked eye, which is deed, with the I symbol making an E pronunciation. So D, not did. Next up is E, with the first example being a bag or a backpack, which is pronounced ebam, ebam. And then there's thread, which is pronounced ebung, ebung. Up next is a rather weird one called eh. The first example being used here is a lid for a pot, which is pronounced ebed, ebed. Almost like saying a bed, but not. And then the second example is earrings, which is pronounced ebese, ebese. The following is another unconventional one from my American perspective, which is pronounced in a more quiet sense in comparison to from earlier. It's And the two examples used here will be a belt and a bell. The first, being the belt, is pronounced ng, ng, or as I like to call it, Sorry, I just had to get that in there. The next example is a bell, which is pronounced nkung, nkung. And then there's G. The first example for G is a swallow, type of bird, which is pronounced ngubako, ngubako, like that. And then there is Alex Delisle. This is my last meme, I promise, which is pronounced ngi, ngi. After that is H, with horse as the first example, which is pronounced husse, husse, like that. And then there is hawk. Two up. Who said that? You want to repeat that again?
I said hawk.
Two up. Anyway, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, this is a hawk, which is pronounced hyod. Hyod. And now we've approached I, the first example for it being egg, which is pronounced aki. Aki. The next example is a cockroach, which is pronounced Pippin. You know, the same way Merry pronounces Pippin's name in Lord of the Rings. And it's quite fitting too, because both are nuisances. You might have noticed how a lot of these examples don't have the focus letter as the starting point of the word. Then there's J, and the two examples are a bat and lines. Just lines. For bat, the word is nchim, pronounced nchim. You gotta pronounce it faster than what my interpretation looks like here. And with lines, it's ncho, ncho. Don't let the double O fool you, it's pronounced ncho. Up next is K, and the first example of which is chicken, which is pronounced coop, coop. Don't say it like coob or cub, it's coop. And then there's a monkey, which is pronounced Keem. The E there is more of a pronunciation of two E's rather than one, so keep that in mind. Next up is one of the many simple examples here, which is L. The two pictures here are a ladder and mushrooms. For ladder, the word is lam. Pretty simple. And then for mushrooms, it's len. And then there's M, featuring a pot and a broom from Cameroon. The first of which is pronounced mbe, mbe. The second is pronounced mwen, mwen. Those two as there make up just one, so it's pronounced eh. Up next is N, and the two examples are a house and a pig. The word for house is ndap, or as I like to say,
That was not your cue to dab, you scum! This isn't 2018!
Sorry, I couldn't help myself, okay? For pig, it's pronounced ngu, ngu. And then another unconventional example being ng. It just makes the ng sound that you hear in some of the previous examples that I mentioned. The images here are a bucket and a bed. For bucket, the word is melunga, melunga. And then for bed, it's anung, anung, not anong, anung. Ooh. I only really have one example for O, and that comes in the form of a guitar. The way to pronounce the translated word for this is ekum, ekum. And then there's k, k, the backward C. The first of the examples here is squirrel, which is pronounced could, as in could, but quieter in a sense, could. And then there is the moon! Sorry, the moon, which is pronounced gun, gun. And then there's P, and the two examples I have are knife and papaya. The translation for knife is pombe, pombe. And then for papaya, it's somehow shorter than the actual word, which is pop, pop. See the reverse C there? And then for R, I only have one example here, and it's of a bird, which is pronounced tara, tara. For S, I have an orange, which is sab, sab. And then a shirt, which is sata, sata. For T, there's a star, which is tintina, tintina. And then hat, which is tamba, tamba. For U, no, not you. I mean the letter U. For U, the first example is fish, which is su. Pretty straightforward. And then fire, which is mo, mo. The U is emphasized there, so it provides a moi. And for W, there's only one example, which is child, and that's pronounced moan, moan. For Y, I have a cow, which is pronounced nyag, nyag. And canoe, which is pronounced mule, mule. For Z, the only example I have right now are scissors, which is pronounced zenz, zenz. And then we have good old connectives, which I provided as an extra example. One of which is the apostrophe, and the example here is of a finger of a six-fingered hand. Who's this, Stanford Pines? And the way to pronounce this word is etmui. And it looks like that concludes my presentation on the alphabet of the Bakossi language. There are many more examples I could have listed for every single letter presented here, but we'd be here until we experience the heat death of the universe if I did. So for now, does anybody have any questions regarding where did everybody go? I've been presenting for 16 hours.